Vaccinating your children is a hot topic for some Canadian parents. Now, while the benefits for vaccinating are widely reported, there are some families still concerned about the side effects and the ingredients in vaccines. So what happens at the family doctor's office when parents decide against vaccinating? Joining me in studio is Dr. Dina Kulik and Dr. Graham Black. Thank you so much for being here this morning. Let's start with you, Dina. How often do you deal with families opposed to vaccination?
Common enough. A couple times a day, I have these discussions with families.
A couple of times a day?
Yes.
Are you surprised by that? Because I'm surprised by that answer.
I'm getting used to it. Over the couple of years since I've been working, I'm getting used to it. Very common. I mean, parents have a lot of hesitancies around vaccines. Lots of stuff in the media that says that, you know, they shouldn't be giving them or they should be reconsidering. And so that plays a part on parents' consciousness.
Graham, how do you handle a family like that?
So it's really about having an open and continuous dialogue with the family. So a lot of times I find out their own perceptions about vaccines in a non-confrontational, non-judgmental manner. I often present the evidence for why vaccines are safe and effective, as well as present the overwhelming benefits and do talk about the small amount of risks that are present. I talk about vaccine safety as well in terms of the robust safety system that we have in Canada, as well as vaccine surveillance systems as well. And also talk about pain management, which is often a concern for parents during giving vaccines. So things like sugar water or breastfeeding during the vaccination, as well as even applying numbing cream before the vaccinations as well.
Dina, what are some of the issues that parents present to you when they come in and say, I'm against this?
Right. It tends to be within one of three categories. So one, preservatives. Many families are very hesitant because they think there's mercury or formaldehyde or aluminum in the vaccines. And the reality is there's no mercury in Canadian vaccines anyway, so that's out. And the amount of aluminum or formaldehyde is in minuscule amounts, even less than is in the kid's body to begin with, or the amount in breast milk or formula. So those things, you can relay those concerns. Parents are very concerned about autism risks, and that's a very predominant one in the media. There was a popular study in 1998 that showed a connection between measles, mumps, rubella vaccine and autism, and that was found to be completely falsified, made up. So we talk about that and how many thousands of studies have come subsequently that show no relationship between measles, mumps, rubella and autism.
Really quickly, when you present these issues to them or these points to them, are you able to convince anybody to change their minds?
So I find in my personal experience that a lot of families are actually vaccine hesitant rather than truly vaccine resistant.
Okay.
So often with ongoing discussion, dialogue, a lot of families do eventually change their minds. Sometimes it's only after one discussion to help change some misconceptions. Other times it's a few conversations over a longer period of time, but I find that most families actually do change their mind with time.
Dina, what about you? Can you change minds?
Absolutely. Yeah. So some parents will decide to do one at a time, or they'll delay them and eventually do them. For me too, I share my personal experience of seeing patients, real life patients, that had actual vaccine-preventable illnesses that could have been prevented. So illnesses like pneumococcal disease and meningitis and Haemophilus influenza pneumonia. I've had kids that actually died of pertussis or whooping cough. So when parents hear like real-life stories of kids that can actually get ill, that changes a lot of parents' minds.
Now, Graham, earlier you talked about sort of having a conversation in a non-judgmental forum. Have you ever fired a patient, or would you ever go so far as to fire a patient?
So categorically not.
No.
I think my obligation in the end is to the child, the patient, and firing them from my practice would be of no benefit to their care in the end. So it's about having that ongoing discussion and dialogue, and that's every health visit is an opportunity to have that discussion. So it's always about keeping the patient on and the family on and using family-centered care in order to eventually try and change minds by presenting evidence and all the benefits of the vaccines in the end.
But then that opens up a whole other can of issues for you, because then you have kids coming into your waiting room who are could possibly expose younger kids who have yet to be vaccinated to all sorts of problems, health problems. So what is your policy and your stance on something like that?
So I isolate those patients. So if a parent comes in and they think their child has chickenpox or measles or other illnesses like that, I bring them into a room immediately and isolate them from the other patients.
Do you have an obligation to disclose to those other patients, their parents, that you have families who are coming in who have not yet vaccinated or are refusing to vaccinate?
So in general, it's still confidential patient information. So if there was a risk of an actual communicable disease, that would be reported to public health, and then public health would then contact the families as needed. But I wouldn't be spreading patients' information because there's still patient confidentiality otherwise. And
lastly, to both of you, in this war against the anti-vaxxer movement, are we winning or not?
I feel like we're winning.
Yeah.
Most of my families, like I said, have decided to vaccinate over time. So I think that open dialogue, that communication, discussing about risks, discussing about benefits, sharing personal experiences makes a big difference.
Well, Dina, Graham, thank you for coming in and sharing your personal experiences with us. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Thanks for having us.
All right, and StatsCan reports that 89% of 2-year-olds in Canada have received the recommended number of immunizations. In 2013, Canada was criticized by UNICEF for an immunization rate that fell below 90%.